Words. I am surrounded by thousands of words. What a powerful way to start a story about somebody who lacks the ability to communicate. Out of My Mind by Sharon M. Draper. I will admit I never read this book before. This was a suggestion from my younger cousin. It's her summer reading book, and I really enjoyed it. This was a really good book. It shocked me in many ways. I didn't like There were many moments where I sat there in the middle of the reading and was just like, wait a minute, are they going to do this? Like, is this really what's going to happen here? I'll be honest, I thought they were going to hit the dog, not Penny. But when I realized it was Penny, I was like, the heck? You're going to kill a child? They didn't kill her, but it was just a shock and very surprising. I think it did a really good job at subverting expectations. And I also like that it didn't necessarily end with a happy ending, because this is a fictional story. And most fiction stories end with a happy ending where they make all the friends and then everything is fixed and it's done well. And this was just like, well, no. The ending, she's not going to make it to the competition because they left her behind purposely. Her best friend, or who she thought was a friend, betrayed her, and then her little sister got run over. It did not end with a happy ending, and it didn't end with a really good conclusion anyway. I mean, we had a good conclusion with the school, but not so much with her little sister, which I'll admit I did feel like, are we really ending here? There's so much that we still didn't know, but there is a second book. This is not a real experience that somebody has had, but it's an experience that many people might have had or probably went through. Not the exact story, but kind of based off of a little bit. So let's just jump right into this. I'm just going to start off with the plot points because that's what I do. So the first thing we have is Melody. Obviously, she was born with cerebral palsy, so she cannot walk, she cannot talk, she can't really communicate well. And then Mrs. V, her neighbor, pushes her to actually try and apply herself further than what she thought she could do, and teaches her kind of to flip herself over and to crawl a little bit. And then her mother enrolls her in school after Melody, of course, has gone through many people writing her off because of what she looks like, not understanding her way of trying to communicate with them. She finally gets a good teacher at that school that actually goes to bat for her and all of the kids in the H5 classroom, and gets her not only her own aid so that she is able to have somebody with her at all times, but also gets her into inclusion classes. Melody sort of befriends Rose in that first art class. Melody gets a talking device like Stephen Hawking has. Melody scores perfectly on the WizKids practice test, but nobody believes that it was intentional. Again, nobody treating her like she's worth anything or like she's knows what she's doing, has presence of mind. Mrs. V again encourages her to push forward and actually try out for the WizKids team. Melody makes the team, they win the tournament, and then the team leaves her behind for the the bigger competition in Washington, D.C. Melody then insists on going to school to prove a point to her classmates, the people that left her behind, and to herself that she doesn't need them. Penny gets hit by their mom's car. Melody confronts the team and they offer her the trophy, but she declines. And then Melody writes her autobiography for her English class, which is the book that we read. So those are the major plot points. There's obviously a lot in there that I didn't really cover, and there's a lot that I didn't exactly write out that I think are major points, but I wanted to just give like what I think were the major points. So let's get into the characters. I have, of course, Melody is our protagonist, but going a little bit deeper, I would also call her an outlaw or an outcast character. Those characters are the ones that are typically shunned by society for one reason or another. And Melody, very obviously, is not liked by the world and not understood. And so she feels like she is on the outside. And through other people's actions, we can basically tell she is on the outside. And then we have Mrs. V. Mrs. V is a complex character. You can see her life outside of just existing in Melody's world through some of what they talk about. She enters a writing competition and wins it. She is obviously very, very intelligent because was a nurse with her mother. We don't know. I think it didn't say if she was retired or not, but it did say that she did work with Melody's mom. But obviously, if she's able to take care of Melody, she's not currently working with her mom. So we know about her past, we know about her life, we know that she's very intelligent and that she's a very kind person. On top of being a complex character, Mrs. V would be also considered a mentor or an encourager character. So throughout the story, she exists almost solely to push Melody into becoming truly herself. So she is the one that encourages Melody to roll over, to learn what she can and cannot do physically, and try to push herself further to learn to do things on her own and see what her real limitations are rather than what other people have told her her limitations are. She's the one that encourages her to do the WizKids tournament, and she is the one that stands up to Claire and Molly first for her at the museum, the aquarium. So Mrs. V is always there to encourage and to push Melody further to be better, to do better, to just fully be herself. And then you have her parents. I did not give them specific character types. I just said that they were complex characters. When her mother is pregnant with Penny, you can see that they are very worried about Penny also turning out like Melody, and they are trying their hardest to take care of Melody and make sure she knows she's loved. But at the same time, they are struggling because it is hard to have to physically take care of somebody else who is incapable of taking care of themselves. And then on top of that, to have to worry about her feelings because Melody obviously doesn't feel great about it herself. So having to regulate normal teenage, preteen behavior in somebody who is basically incapable of taking care of themselves, it is quite difficult. And you can see them struggle with the difficulties, but also loving her immensely. They're very complex, and you can see deeper into their minds and what they like, what they are meaning and doing, and all of that good stuff. And then we have Rose. I said she is both a complex and a dynamic character. So she's complex in that you can see that she is trying to fit in with other students as well, but at the same time, she is trying to be nice with Melody. So it's almost like there are two sides of the school. There are the H5, and then there's the what Melody calls normal kids school. So there's the normal kids that is Claire, Molly, Rodney, Connor, all of the people, Mr. Dimming even, the teachers of the average students. And then you have the people that are with the H5 room who are special needs. So Rose is obviously a very kind person, a very kind character who wants to include Melody in normal life. But at the same time, as she is doing that, she has to leave behind the normal. And so she's kind of balancing in between the two places for a very long time. And you can see, as much as she wants to be nice to Melody, and maybe she wants to be friends with Melody, maybe she just wants to be nice, either way, she is being called away from it. And so you can see her kind of battle with wanting to hang out with Melody and make her feel included and make her happy, and wanting to be with everybody else, whether it's because it's difficult to communicate with Melody or because other people are shunning Melody. We don't really know, but we know that she does struggle. And she's dynamic because she starts as a friend. By the end of it, she ultimately is the one that made the decision not to call Melody and tell her that the flight was canceled and they need to get on an earlier one. Rose is basically the one that made Melody not able to go to the competition in DC. So she basically betrayed her, and that's why I called her a dynamic character as well. And then you have Connor and Randy. They're both pretty flat comic relief characters. They basically just exist to fill out the WizKids team. They are almost the exact same. Honestly, as I was reading it, I kept getting them confused. Same with Claire and Molly. They're flat stock character Mean Girls, they don't have too much of a difference between the two of them. It's like they're there just to show, oh, there's a mean girl in school. They're not fleshed out characters enough for me to call them a full character, so I would call them pretty flat and pretty stock characters of comic relief and Mean Girls. The only one that I would say maybe is a little different is Claire, because you can see that she is being mean to Melody to be popular. Molly we don't see so much, but you can see specifically when after the competition they are talking to the reporter, when Claire says, oh, I'm best friends with Melody, that is purely so that the cameras will pay attention to her instead of Melody. A lot of the interactions that you see with Claire, it's always she is trying to make herself look better by making others look worse. So you can see that there's a little bit of insecurity there, but you kind of have to dig in to see that. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that's clear complexity to her. So I'm still going to just call her a flat stock character. But I think if you want to reach, you could say that she's a complex character because you can see a little bit of her insecurities. And then you have Catherine. Catherine is a clear sidekick. I'd say she's also pretty flat. You could argue that she's complex because you hear about some of her life outside of Melody, and you can see that she's also very smart and she's also very caring. But ultimately, her main purpose in the story is to take care of Melody whenever she's not around Mrs. V, and when she's not, basically just take care of her whenever she's at school, and to help her along. So she's the one that kind of makes sure that she gets to her inclusion classes and that she's answering questions initially whenever she needs to write stuff down and whatnot, making sure that she's there. But she's not like a very present character, so she really can't be anything other than just a flat character. But she's the sidekick in that she is the one that really aids Melody at school because she can't do anything for herself, basically. And then you have Mr. Dimming. He is a complex character because, very similar to Rose, you can see that he is not really used to dealing with people that have difficulties, and he doesn't really know how to deal with Melody in the classroom, doesn't know how to I don't know, just function, really. But he tries really hard to be a good teacher. You can see how much he cares for all of his students, for the work that he does, for the competition. He cares so much, but he still underestimates and is not a good teacher to Melody, despite his trying, because initially he writes her off and he's like, her getting a 100 on this test is a complete mistake. And he initially doesn't want her to come try out for the Whiz Kids, and it just completely underestimates her. But then he comes back and he's like, class, I am sorry, I misjudged. She is intelligent, she deserves to be here. So his apology shows that he is capable of introspection and reflection and thinking deeper than what is surface level. And then even though he apologizes and he's like, I will try not to misjudge you or undervalue you anymore, he continues to do that because what kind of good teacher would allow and be at a breakfast with every single one of the Whiz Kids students except for one who was not invited? If you truly care about your students, you would not allow that to happen. And he probably could see at the practices she was kind of left out a little bit. So there were times he could have stepped in and he didn't. And so you can see he wants to be good, but at the same time he doesn't know how to handle it, so he wants to leave it alone as well. Kind of same situation as Rose, except less peer pressure-y and more just befuddlement, confusion of it. And then the last characters that I have is just kind of the teachers as a whole. Almost all of them are flat. You have Mrs. Shannon, who is there to purely be a help to Melody. You have the bad teacher before Mrs. Shannon that was just there to be a bad teacher. You have the art teacher, who is a good, kind person. The English teacher really isn't given a personality. She just gives the assignment to push the book into existence. So really the teachers aren't really much of anything at all. If you wanted to, notice I did not name an antagonist. That is because this story, and I'll get into that in just a second, is not really about a protagonist and an antagonist. It's not a person versus another person. This is a person versus society. But you could argue it's a person versus a person. Specifically, with Claire and Molly, they could be antagonists, or Mr. Dimming. Or even Rose at the very end. Because they are the ones that perpetuate, they're the ones that kind of make worse the bullying and the separation that Melody feels with all of these students. They are the ones that kind of almost push it. Specifically Claire and Molly, I would say, because they are specifically her bullies. They make her feel more like an outcast, and they make sure that she's not included, and they make sure that she knows she is nothing. They're very mean. So obviously they're kind of antagonistic. So really, they're the main examples of society rejecting Melody, but they alone are not causing the problem. So to get on what I was talking about, man versus man, these are actually conflicts of stories. Most stories have one of these. I think it's 7 conflicts, 8 maybe. I didn't write down the number. Let's see. So you have man versus man. Well, this could also be man can be replaced by character, person, woman, whatever, but it's just layman's terms. Man versus man versus self, man versus technology, man versus society, man versus nature, man versus the supernatural, and man versus destiny. 7 hours, right? This particular story has 2 types of conflicts. Man versus self, which is Melody kind of struggling with herself and struggling with wanting to be included and wanting all of these things that everybody else has but not being able to do it, and then kind of beating herself up because of it. She feels that she is inadequate, and so she is struggling against herself with what she is able to do, what her limitations are, what she feels comfortable doing, what she wants to do, and holding herself back, specifically whenever it comes to what Mrs. V is helping her to conquer. At the beginning, she didn't even try to turn over or crawl at all because she didn't think she could do it. And with the WizKids team, they said, oh, that was probably a fluke. And then she immediately was just like, oh, whatever. I'm not even going to try anymore. I should just sit in the inclusion classes all day, or in the H5 classroom all day and just not do anything, blah, 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 just feeling bad for herself. And so that's man versus self. Like, she's really struggling with what she wants and then just immediately feeling bad about herself. Struggling with herself about what she wants to do and what she wants to push for. And then man versus society, where society is really battling against Melody, where they don't really want her to be included. She really faces like just being rejected by the world and everyone around her, and also undervaluing her own life. And that is shown through the one symbol that I have. I'm sure there are more if you dig deeper. So the one symbol that I have is Ollie, the goldfish. Ollie was stuck in his fishbowl. And Melody specifically says, I feel like Ollie, or she relates herself to Ollie multiple times in the book. So it is clear that Ollie is a symbol for Melody. Ollie swam around in his fishbowl, and he felt trapped there. And eventually one day he decided to escape, so he jumped out of his fishbowl. So 2 ideas I can think of why this is symbolic of Melody. One is that Melody just really wants to escape her body because her body is her fishbowl. She can't escape it. Maybe you could say her fishbowl is her wheelchair because she can't do anything without it. Really, it's just the lack of ability to do stuff. And with Ollie trapped in the fishbowl, he couldn't do anything except for swim in circles. And with Melody trapped in her body or trapped in her chair, she can't do anything except for think in circles. She can just think and think and think and watch movies and do the same things day in, day out that other people set up for her because she can't do anything herself. So when Ollie jumped out of the fishbowl, there are 2 things that I can think of. He jumped out to find a world other than the one he was living in, and hoping there was something else out there, and if he just got out of the bowl, then he could go thrive somewhere else. Or he knew, because I've heard that goldfish are are pretty smart. I've also heard they only have 6 seconds of memory. I'm not a scientist, I don't know. But if the fish was smart and it knew it can't breathe without water, it jumped out and it knew that its life was going to end. If it is that second option and Ollie symbolizes Melody, would Melody be willing to not live simply to stop being trapped by her own body? Specifically, I'm talking about two moments towards the end of the book. One where Penny is hit by the car and she is thinking like, it should have been me. Or she tells Mrs. V, it should have been me. I should have been the one hit by the car because nobody would care if I was gone. And she thinks this earlier in the book as well. She thinks about her parents sending her to a facility and thinking it would be so much better for them if I weren't here. You know, you can go back and forth. Does she just not want to live this way, or does she just kind of not want to live? Either way, Ollie is a symbol of Melody feeling trapped by her circumstances and wanting to get out of it. And moving on to theme, our last topic for the day. I recently took a class that focused on theme myself, and so I think I have a little bit of a better understanding of it now. But from my understanding now, theme is basically like a big moral to a story, a little further than a moral. It is a universal truth. A universal truth is a fundamental principle or insight that resonates across all human experience, highlighting our shared existence and the commonalities in our lives. Just to give an example of this to help you understand what I'm talking about, take the movie Cats and Dogs. Out there, I know. The theme of this, the universal truth that the writers of this movie is trying to get across, is that dogs are better than cats. Cats are evil, dogs are good. Because what do you see throughout the movie? Cats are trying to destroy humanity. Dogs are trying to save them from cats. That's the entire plot of the movie. So the theme is that dogs are better than cats. Dogs are good, cats are bad. Some people don't have that opinion. Some people think cats are better than dogs. Some people don't care. So that's kind of basically what the universal truth is. It's something that you believe wholeheartedly, that is a shared experience with you and a lot of other people, but some people may have a different opinion. So in this book, I would say the major themes, I have 3 major things. One is that communication is vital to life. Melody, throughout the entire story, is constantly talking about how she feels unable to connect with anybody because she can't communicate with them. Whenever she first meets Catherine, whenever she first talks to Rose, whenever she's taking the test, there's always something that she wants to say and can't. And because she can't say those things, the other people get the wrong impression, or the impression that she doesn't want them to get. With Rose, she wanted to say, oh, I hate jazz music, or yeah, I don't like jazz music. And Rose didn't get it at first. And so it was kind of like this hard communication, and she was feeling really down about it until Rose finally understood her. And then she felt good. She wanted to initially comment about Catherine's outfit in a joking manner, but she didn't want it to come off as rude. So instead, she didn't say anything. And whenever she was taking that test, she was like, well, there are 2 of these that don't fit the pattern. You can either have the banana, which is yellow, or the balloon, which is not a fruit. So communication is vital to connecting with other people. We also have community is what makes life good. In the very end, you have that big speech from Mrs. V telling Melody, like, you have so many people that care about you. And after she gets this speech of, your mom and dad love you, they wouldn't trade you for anything. It doesn't matter what you do, what difficulties you have, what you rely on them for. They will love you. They will take care of you forever. It doesn't matter. We love you, and we would be so upset if you were not here. And after she gets this big speech is when she builds the courage to go in and tell her classmates that left her behind, I don't need your pity. I don't need your trophy. In the end, you left me behind. You chose not to take me with you, and that's on you. You deserve to lose. And then she left because she already has the community, and she doesn't need to try and make one or please everybody at school anymore because she has her people. My last one is that you can do anything you set your mind to within the limitations of the world. And by that I mean she can participate in the WizKids competition. She took the practice test, got a 100. She's smart. She took the actual test, got a 100, I think. And then she made the team. She made the team. She didn't think it would be possible to make the team, but she made the team. Not only did she make the team, but she won the initial competition in town. She was able to participate because they made modifications. If you just try or change a little thing, you can do anything. And she can crawl. She can make noise. She can communicate. She has her board. She has Elvira. She has Mrs. V to push her to try and crawl with the little muscle movements that she's able to muster. Of course, she can't walk because that is the limitations of the world. But anything plausible that she sets her mind to, she can do. And I want to leave you with just a couple of questions because I think this book is teaching us to be kind about everybody and learning about our worth and our limitations, and that our limitations are not always what other people say our limitations are. So the first one is, what does the story teach us about how words, no matter how quiet, and actions can impact others? Think specifically about when Melody was overhearing Molly and Claire talk about her, or seeing the people stare at her whenever she goes out in public. What does Melody's story teach us about judging others based on their appearances? Ever seen Mary Poppins Returns? Tell him the one about the wealthy widow. Oh, but of course. Because she walked around in leaves, nobody thought she was rich. What part of the book did you find the most interesting, and why do you think you liked that particular part? I know for me personally, I really liked the intensity of the airport scene whenever we finally arrived to learn about it. I love the crushing, I love when a book can make me feel things intensely. So I loved that part, and I loved whenever Penny got run over because it's such high stakes, high emotions, and I love when a book gets me so absorbed into it that I'm really taken. So what did you like about the book specifically? What part drew you in? Feel free to tell me your thoughts on the books, your answer to these questions in the comments. I would love to read them. I love knowing what other people think about books, and if you can think about anything, come up with stuff that I didn't think about, I'd love to hear that. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next with a discussion on the movie and all of the things they changed and why I think they did that. Bye!